And so it's places like this that's not doing better. And so I think when you look at it from the perspective of people that live in this community, they would say it's not getting better. But if you was to go downtown, to people with capital, they'll say it's getting better.
I guess gentrification isn't for everyone. That was a dude who works for Hope for Inner City. They're a nonprofit here in Chattanooga. I was driving around on the east side of town checking things out because I had heard this part of town was really rough and dangerous. I guess it is, but like the rest of town, it's getting cleaned up fast. It was my final stop on the Appalachian adventure. I'm here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I had heard conflicting reports about what it was like here these days. Some say it's an emerging tech hub with all these exciting things going on, but it also has a reputation as being one of the most dangerous, run-down cities in the country. I wanted to know, which one is it? So I came here for a couple days to poke around and talk with folks and get a feel for the place. I have to say, this place is on its way up, but I don't think there's too many people here who would want me to tell you that. Choo choo! Chattanooga, choo choo! All aboard! You're probably like, that's not a train. Well, it kinda is. We're on the Lookout Mountain Incline Railway. This thing's a mile long, and it goes straight up to the top of the mountain in town. I mean, straight up. They call it the world's steepest passenger railway. So steep you can kinda almost fall out of your seat. From the top, you can see downtown and the whole valley. They say you can see 7 states from up here. That's Kentucky over there. And if you squint, I think that's North Carolina. But I don't know. But I do know is that down there is Chattanooga. From up here, it looks like a really nice place, doesn't it? And on the ground, it's starting to look a lot better too. For a long time, Chattanooga was a booming town. They had coal, steel, manufacturing, all the stuff this whole part of the country was known for. But you've heard it all before. Things that made this place so wonderful all started to leave, and it all began to crumble. By the 1980s, Chattanooga was bad. It got really run down when all the jobs left. Crime was some of the highest in the country, and it became known as a real-life Appalachian ghetto. It was just miserable here. It was voted America's dirtiest city. People said the air here was mustard-colored. That would suck. But this is not a sad story. About 20 years ago, folks in town said, you know what? We should probably start fixing the place up. So they began putting an effort into making Chattanooga great again. They started sprucing up a lot of their neighborhoods and tearing down old buildings, and, well, things have been getting better here. Chattanooga's on the banks of the Tennessee River, right on the Georgia state line. A lot of people actually commute in from Georgia, where housing's a lot cheaper, because this place is really starting to blow up. Lots of people are moving to Tennessee in general. It's warm and conservative and cheap, and there's no income tax. They just don't have as much of the BS here. Things are going pretty well in Chattanooga right now. There was a little tech boom here a while back, and that brought in a bunch of new talent. If you're a tech geek from California, this place is heaven. You can walk around and not step in bum poop or pay $4,500 for a teeny little apartment. Man, oh man. All over town, they're tearing down old buildings and making room for new businesses and condos. You can drive on some of the streets here and literally see the change happening block by block. Run down, abandoned, and then not that. It's kind of interesting to see what's going on here now. Like, check this out. Over here on the side of town by the river, they're putting in a computer chip company in a part of town that used to have an old steel mill. That's cool. And on the north end of downtown, they took out a bunch of abandoned warehouses there and put in this fancy new aquarium that a lot of people are buzzing about. I didn't have time to look at the fish, though. I was too busy for that. Chattanooga has a funky, weird, hipstery vibe to it now. It has some Tennessee twang, but it's not all honky-tonk like over in Nashville. Some people have compared this place to a mini Austin, Texas, the emerging culture that's going on, but without the bums and the cost of living. I heard about a place called Whiskey Cowgirl on the south end of downtown. People are like, you gotta go see that place. There used to be an abandoned building that some investors bought and turned this place into one of the coolest restaurants in town. I have to say, it was really cool. If I was a young kid, I would have whooped it up here all the time. They got live music and a giant swimming pool out back. And there's plans to do stuff like this all over town. But not everybody's happy about it. Go over to the hood on the east side of town, and it's not the same vibe. This is the east side of Chattanooga. I'd asked around, and I was told this side of town still showed a lot of signs of old Chattanooga. Gang violence, drug use, shootings, poverty, hookers. Supposedly Chattanooga has the ugliest hookers in the country, at least according to the producers of Cops, which made episodes here from time to time. That's mean. Of course, drug overdoses are on the rise here, just like the rest of America. I've heard all the officers have to carry Narcan now. Some will stick 4 or 5 Narcans into an overdosed person to try to bring them back to life. And all that does is piss the druggies off. Just buys them time so they can go out and score their next hit. This side of Chattanooga has been described as a little crackheady, kind of pillbilly. Although it's getting better, crime here is still really bad on this side of town. There's a 1 in 100 chance your car will get stolen. 1 in 17 people here are victims of a theft. The Crips have a presence here. That sucks for the neighbors. And you may not know it, but Chattanooga is still ranked as one of the 10 most dangerous cities in the country, even up there with Memphis. It was also called one of the country's 10 worst run cities. Man, oh man. But I've been to a lot of places, and there are way worse run places in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Come on now. This is another bad area in town. It's one of the housing projects over by the river. I hear this is where the Bloods stay at. The good news is it's getting better here. There's less shootings now, and they just elected a conservative prosecutor who's enforcing the law more. That's good. Let's go back to the guy I talked to earlier. So this guy and the woman with him, they work for Hope for the inner city. Their goal is to break the cycle of poverty on the bad side of town. I stopped here for a bit, and I asked him, hey, I hear Chattanooga's getting way better. How do you feel about that? They said it might be getting better for the people with money and for the tourists, but over here it's not improving. They said it might even be worse in the hood now.
I probably couldn't tell you for sure one way or the other if it's getting better. I think things are changing and it looks different. I think that in some ways crime is getting better, but I think in other ways with big, like a lot of people coming in from other cities and buying up houses and the gentrification that's happening, I think it's being pushed out of the city more rather than actually solving the issue. I think that it's not necessarily being solved, but it's moving. From my experience. But
basically, what you have is 2 Chattanoogas, and so when you have 2 Chattanoogas, you have part of Chattanooga that is doing better, people that have capital, people that have money, people that own land, Yes, that part of Chattanooga is doing wonderful. But then there are areas like this that we stay in, 37404, 37406. That's a food desert. There's no grocery store within 5 miles from where I'm standing right now.
I kind of think downtown Chattanooga is the perfect size. It's pretty clean, and there's a lot of stuff to do here to entertain you. It's definitely getting more yuppie hip with the little microbreweries and coffee houses springing up. Some of the new people moving into town are trying to turn it into a more bougie place, but it's still holding on to its old charm. And the music scene's always been strong here. People around here will say, it's not a small city, it's a big town. You see a lot of the same people if you're out and about. There's some museums and historical stuff. The aquarium is talked about a lot, and they have a cool minor league baseball stadium downtown. I'd say folks are pretty nice here. It's southern, and southerners are known for being hospitable and all. I kind of like it here. And jobs-wise, there's actually more than you might think. Tech is a thing, but not to the extent I think they had hoped when tech first started moving in. It was actually Volkswagen that kind of kicked the whole economy into gear when they opened up a manufacturing plant here 10 years ago. There's actually a lot of car manufacturers moving into the South now. They pay lower wages, and the unions can't dictate everything here. Everybody always said the South was a low-skill region, but not anymore. The South is booming, pal. Add all of this up, the growth, the improvements and everything, and you can see why Chattanooga's getting more popular. And obscure internet rankings certainly help. One website called Chattanooga one of the country's top travel destinations. Another one called Chattanooga one of the most welcoming cities in the nation. I don't know how you can measure that clickbait crap. And of course, everybody wants to know about the bums. The homeless problem here isn't anything like I've seen in our big cities. There's a few stragglers around, but they don't let them stay put too long as far as I could see. The biggest homeless eyesore is on the edge of downtown, right in the area where all the gentrification's moving in. I'm going to guess they keep pushing these folks further and further out as the city expands its improvement footprint. I heard a previous mayor bought a motel in a city nearby and sent his homeless people to live there. Well, at least they're actually trying to fix the problem, I guess. This homeless guy has a damn laptop. In all my years of traveling and seeing the biggest homeless camps in the country, I've never seen a bum with a computer before. Well, they say tech's moving in here. There's your proof. I talked to a police officer who lives here. His name's Marvin. You'll meet him in a little bit. I asked Marvin why there's so many cop cars everywhere downtown. He told me they've had a lot of problems with the troublemakers who come downtown from the hood. They vandalize and harass people, so they're cracking down on that a lot more. Well, good for you guys, Chattanooga PD. You guys get an A in my book. That's the opposite from what I saw happening in California. They let those punks run wild out there. Even at night, it's pretty chill downtown here. You can walk around and not really be bothered too much. Well, no place is perfect. A lot of Chattanooga's neighborhoods are pretty standard. A lot of towns, pretty middle class. Here's what that looks like. Folks don't make a lot here. I think the average family brings in mid-40s for salaries, but if you've been here for a while, your home costs aren't too bad. $50K goes a lot further here than in Nashville, I'd tell ya. Home prices are reaching $300K right now, but they're climbing fast, mister. Like 20% in the last year alone. A lot of people want to move here. Rent was cheap, but it's not anymore either. $1,000 a month won't get you anything but the hood anymore these days. That sucks. And of course, religion's a big deal here. You see churches all over town. People ask you if you're baptized or if you know Jesus. but they're not as pushy here as they are down in the deep south. I want to show you the fancy part of town. This is what they call North Shore. I saw some huge mansions up here. If you're thinking about moving to Chattanooga and you have deep pockets, you want to settle in across the river on the north end. Homes here are pushing $900K at this point. That's kind of the average home price. I bet there's a lot of old money up here in these parts. Holdouts from the old manufacturing and energy days and all. I think one of the coolest little neighborhoods in Chattanooga is on this side of the river. This little village area has all the comforts of home without the fuss. Huh, everyone? A real bubble on the north side of the river, I say.
Did you know Chattanooga was the first city to have 1 gigabyte internet speeds?
I did know that, Mappy. But hey, that means that they can watch you and I without buffering.
I wonder if the poor people on the east side of town have fast internet.
I'd imagine they would. You can't throttle the internet for some people and not others, can you?
I think a lot of people in the bad area have track phones anyways.
Mappy, what are you even talking about? Sometimes I wonder why I even bring you on these trips. Jerk. While out and about in Chattanooga, I saw a lot. I was here for 2 whole days. I already showed you the Whiskey Cowgirl. That place is awesome. I had a drink at the Southern Belle Riverboat, which is parked right on the Tennessee River. That was cool. It doesn't move anymore. But this is totally Southern charming, huh? I forgot to record when I was inside, but I promise you it's really neat inside that boat. And there's a university here. It's called UT Chattanooga. I think there's about 11,000 students here. Not a small campus at all for being out in the middle of nowhere. Nice place. I hear they turn out some smart kids. One of the coolest bar/restaurants I went to was called the Pickle Barrel. The bathroom looks very old Chattanooga. Kind of creepy, actually. But then up on top, it's all new and modern. The basement versus the rooftop patio here is kind of an analogy to the whole old versus new that you see across the whole city. And that's called insightful writing. There's actually a lot of mid-sized cities in this part of the country that are getting better fast. Greenville, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, and here in Chattanooga. Outdoorsy people would love it. Hikers and religious types would thrive. Young people really seem to dig it here. I mean, why not? It's modern, progressive, but not over-the-top woke. It's not for everyone yet. They still have a lot of challenges. Seems like Chattanooga is still maturing, like a cake that's half-baked in the oven. I tell you what, it's good to see a place getting better. It's refreshing. Gives you hope in the country. Because so much of the U.S. is getting worse. And I get worn down talking about that all the time. For people like this who feel they're being shut out of the enthusiasm and the growth and the excitement, well, they're just going to have to adapt. They're going to have to improve their situation or they're going to get passed by. Just like all the other people we saw in Appalachian land. I crisscrossed these mountains for 3 weeks, and I'd have to say evolution is the main takeaway. It's either adapt or die up here. You gotta change. If you don't, you're gonna just fade away into forgotten. So crime is not getting better around here?
No, crime is getting worse. I mean, not just here, all over America. I mean, crime is getting worse. We have police chiefs that's doing their best, that's trying to put a handle on crime. But when you have broken families, when you have people that's living under the poverty line, you're going to continue to have crime. And so all we can do right now is do our best to try to work together with those that have and the people that have not. If we work together, we can possibly make a change.
If you could do one thing to fix the problem with crime here, what would it be?
One is, I would say, family. The family breakdown in our communities is what's really, I believe, driving a lot of the crime. For instance, when you have a father in the home, a father is more likely to have his children in check, to make sure his children are getting home on time and things of that nature. In our communities, you have a 72% single parent rate. And so fathers are simply not in the home, whether it be because of, incarceration, men being locked up in prison, or whether it's the child support system, where men are being locked out of their homes because of child support or they haven't paid. There's a lot of different issues that go into that. And so, but I would say if it was one thing that we can fix, I would believe getting fathers back into the home. That's where we saw families thriving, and America was thriving when we had more intact families.
How do you get fathers back in the home?
One, child support reform, prison reform. That's one of the things when you got men going to jail for petty crimes for years upon years, when then their son grow up in a home where he's not there. And then you have child support reform. I believe equal shared parenting is a law that needs to happen, where if there's a divorce or the child is not with is not in an intact home, there should be equal time given to the father. And so those are just two policies that we could change overnight that will change fathers being in the lives of children, that will reduce the crime.
So let's talk about the bad a little bit, because that's what people want to hear first. And I've talked about good Chattanooga the whole video leading up to this point. But a lot of people, you hear about Chattanooga, a lot of people don't realize that it was up there for dangerous cities, like top 10. But I hear it's getting better crime-wise. Is that true?
Yeah. The police department has come out and said that violent crime, the overall numbers have come down. There's less violent crime, less shootings, less homicides, less assaults. But property crime is still a thing.
Yeah, you told me that the Chattanooga PD has been proactive about not letting the knuckleheads run the place. Is that a new philosophy?
Yeah, it's always been a problem for years, but I think the department has taken better approaches. We figured out, the time windows of when those kinds of things happen, the right strategy on how to address it and how to, reprimand or keep it from happening again, set deterrence. And luckily, the justice system, the county attorney generals, whether it's on the adult side or the juvenile, they're on board with trying to keep that stuff from happening again. So it's been having a good turnout. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I talked to some people. So I stopped by. There's a nonprofit on the east side of town, and I went by there and I was like, "Hey, man, like, I'm hearing Chattanooga is getting better. I can see visually things are improving. I hear crimes going down," and they pretty much cut me off and were like, "It's better for the people with the money, but over here, it's worse. It's not good." Do you hear that ever when you're out and about?
Yeah, I hear it. And you can also see it over the last decade. They've been closing off a lot of the public housing. There's 2 public housing complexes left, but that's put a lot of those people in a between a rock and a hard place. The Public Housing Authority had tried to remove them, try to set them up somewhere with like vouchers, but it really depends on who you ask. It's not going to benefit everybody, of course, but there's always caveats to growth.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of gentrification. I know that some people hate it because they say it pushes people out, but you gotta. I mean, if you don't, the places, our cities are going to just eventually just erode. I mean, I drove through West Virginia for like 9 days on my way to Chattanooga, and those places are beyond repair. I mean, that's what happens to cities are not indestructible. You have to rebuild them or they'll be dust one day. And I know it sucks for the people. My whole thing is the theme I think I took away from the trip was like evolution and adaptation. You have to be able to change in that region because things are changing pretty fast. Some places are doing very well. Some places are not. The ones that haven't been doing very good for a long time, and there's a reason for that, because nobody's willing to make change. They just stick to their guns on what they've been doing forever. Industries have left. Chattanooga suffered a lot of that, and they have found a way to turn things around. You just got to adapt, man. That's how I feel.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In the 60s or 70s, Chattanooga was named probably the dirtiest city in the whole country, because of all of our steel mills and, mills that we had back then. But now, we turned it around to one of the most scenic places in the Southeast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good for you guys, man. You had talked and briefly, and then we'll talk about the good stuff. You had mentioned the problem with overdoses and drugs. That's a national problem. Is there from a police officer standpoint, is there hope? Is there optimism? Is there a plan, or are we just headed down a road that we don't have a plan to solve this?
Well, from that standpoint, there are plans in place. There's, they can only do so much as, the police department. We can only do so much by just responding to it. But, it's part of a, like you said, a big underlying problem with our society is, whether or not, however you want to cut it, but whether if it's like a, mental health problem or a healthcare problem. But for now, the officers here are well trained. They are well equipped. They have their Narcan. The call takers that dispatch, when you call 911, they know what to look for on calls of an overdose. They know what to ask. Are they looking blue, or they're breathing faint? Is there any syringes around them? Any stuff like that? Any paraphernalia? So what we can do from our end is just respond to it and make sure that person gets the best care and emergency response that they can. And the community, surprisingly, there's a methadone clinic here in Chattanooga near the Georgia border. So, as far as we can do, we're doing what we can. But, as long as this fentanyl stuff is a national trend, it's going to be there. We all remember when, methamphetamine was a thing, and then it's, opioids, and now it's worse than opioids is the fentanyl. And then, these things come in cycles. So we're just going to have to wait it out and see. You can't help but be optimistic,
I just feel bad for you guys. It sucks that you have to take training. There's enough problems in the communities that we live in that we have to take some time away from officers, and they have to learn new training on how to solve new drugs that are popping up, instead of being, the time you guys should be able to go out and use that extra time to go out and get to know the community more and walk the streets, but you got to go to training and learn how to do Narcan stuff. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So how do people feel about the future of Chattanooga, man? It seems to be on the upswing. Are people excited? Are you excited? Are you going to stick around there for a while? Yeah,
look, things are looking good over here. I'm thinking about staying here. I don't see any reason to move. I'm pretty happy here. The interstate is being expanded, is being widening out a little this year. It's going to be a project. So there's going to be hopefully less of a traffic jam from our commuters between, Atlanta or Knoxville into Nashville. So I-24 is going to be expanded, thank goodness. That looks good. Hopefully, that's always our fear, is the fear that the city will outrun, it's infrastructure, right? We don't want to end up like Austin, where it's like, I hear this horrendous traffic jams. But the city's growing. Developments are coming in. People are, it depends on who you ask. People are excited for the growth. People are grumpy about it, less parking lots, more apartment buildings kind of deal. But yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah, I talked to some folks in Central Tennessee, sort of over on the plateau there, over in Roane County. And they're like, we're so tired of Californians and New Yorkers coming here and trying to change things. They're like, if you want to come here because it's cheap and it's rural and everyone's nice and you've heard about, Tennessee is like the new place to go, come here and don't try to change things. Just be a good person, because we don't want you to try to come and change our politics or try to change our laws. Just try to fit in and blend in, and you can come. Like we're not like angry people. And I'd imagine that's probably what Chattanooga is probably thinking about right now. There's probably a lot of people like, the lid's about to blow up on this place. Just cross your fingers and hope the people that come here are going to make it better instead of make it worse.
Oh yeah, especially during COVID, that housing market, has been taken over by people like that. Been moving over from California and New York who come here, buy up houses without inspections or walkthroughs. They just outright overpay for the asking price and take homes away from us. But it is what it is. They're not calling Nashville the new LA for no reason. So that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, is the homeless problem there? Because California, they cater to them, so they go there on purpose. Is it cost of living problem? Is it just a in small amounts of drug abuse and mental illness thing like you see in all the cities, or are people intentionally being sent to Chattanooga, or are they making their way there from other states because of a reason?
It's because Chattanooga, even though it's a small area, it's got a prominent infrastructure support system for homeless people. They got that, they got community kitchens, they have community health care centers, so that's why they're sending these people are getting wind of it. They're taking the trains to get to Chattanooga or buses or however, but they get here, word gets around.
It's kind of a problem that I think a lot of cities have to deal with is like, okay, you have to have a support system for the homeless people, but then that it acts like bait, which brings in more homeless people. So how do you what once you open that up? I don't know how you can turn it around.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like you give a mouse a cookie kind of thing, It's either all or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, it may even. Hopefully, it doesn't get worse. I mean, as the cost of living in Chattanooga keeps going up, I don't know. I'm not a believer in cost of living being the main issue of homelessness, because I think the people that are short term, that have jobs, that are having a hard time, that maybe lost a job or had a setback, that couldn't afford rent or couldn't live somewhere, those people are usually in their cars or on friends' couches or in motel rooms or kind of like figuring out. The people you see on the street, laying on the sidewalk, stumbling around, begging for money, those people, that's not a cost of living thing. That's a lifestyle thing. That's a choice. That's my opinion. Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of homeless people and I've seen a lot of stuff. So I don't buy the whole, it's too expensive, look at the streets. That's not what I believe.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. When you say like that, if it's cost of living, it's a lot of it, it's temporary, like, for example, like the family I met in the projects, the white family and, the sea of African-American families there. And when I would talk to them, they'd be like, oh yeah, this is just a setback, monthly rent in the public housing was like $75 a month or something like that back at the time. And this was like 7 years ago. And, I'd talk to them and they'd be like, yeah, we plan on being here about a year and a half, get our money saved up and get a house. I was like, okay, cool. It sounds like a plan, and like you said, any cost of living setbacks is temporary. But then, we can't fix the issue by throwing money at it by all the permanent ones, the mental health, the people that are out there just are not functioning on all cylinders to be able to live a lifestyle of keeping up a house or an apartment or work a job, pay bills, be socially functioning. They end up homeless easily. The people addicted to, substances, obviously they're not going to be able to live that, lifestyle either. So, the easy way out is homelessness. So we can't just throw money at it. It's a deeper underlying problem for sure.
Very rarely do I see a southern city that allows tent camping on sidewalks, sleeping on benches. Do you guys shoo them out away from the downtown area to kind of not create an area that people don't want to be comfortable in, or do they just not like to just sleep there?
No, No, they have to be, shoot away. It's a constant game of tag with the city and the homeless community. Once they start congregating too much in one area close to, open to the public, then they have to force these people out, go somewhere else. So what we see today is a lot of homelessness go into the woods in the areas of the cities, and they just kind of chill there. But it used to be worse. It used to be a little bit more available to see to the eye.
Have you seen any of the videos, the California stuff I've put out, Oakland and San Diego and LA, and how that looks?
Yeah.
You should be glad that you don't have to deal with that. Can you imagine?
You can probably see that. Oh man, no, yeah, that'd be horrendous.
I don't even know how there's entire neighborhoods that they've constructed out of plywood and tarps and whatever the hell they can find in the places like Oakland. Can you imagine having to try to go in there and you get a call and you got to go into some Hooverville shanty town thing that.
It's like that Chaz zone in Seattle or wherever it was in Portland. Reminds me of that.
Well, keep doing your thing, man. Keep Tennessee great, and don't let all that stuff infect your state, because they're gonna try, man. They're trying here where I live, and we got to just stand our ground and say, you want to do that, you go to the coast. You don't do that here.
Yep. Exactly.
I live in North Georgia, and a lot of people who can't afford to live in the city now are living in Rossville or East Brainerd, or things like that. So I think it just, I don't think it necessarily is being solved, but
it's being moved.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Two Chattanoogas.
There are two Chattanoogas.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's two Chattanoogas. Some say it's good, and that's for the ones that's upper class, middle class. But for the ones that's
lower class,
no.
Yeah.
We still got a whole bunch of violence. Like you said, the money. And then they're coming in and taking over, where low income houses at. They're moving our elderlies out, and people really that can't afford it out.
Okay, but so crime is not getting better at all? No. Okay.
Crime ain't getting better.
You would agree?
I would think so. I'm less.
Been here 56 years.
Yeah, I'm less in it than AJ is.
Okay.
But
so there has to be something better. Would you say that it's at all better? It's not improved at all since?
I think
the gangs has gotten a little worse.
Okay.
And my perspective, that the mayor should ask the officers to do their job for us, these little young boys on curfew. They supposed to be in at 11 o'clock. They in 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And that's why the crime's so bad.
There we go.
He's going to be able to speak more to that than I am. I think he has a broader perspective of this city that I do not have. And I think that...
But I love my chief of policeman. She's one of a kind.
Are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. And I can also help you find your new house, too. Email me and I'll work with you on not just helping you figure out where to move, but I can help you find your perfect home, too. That's right. I know awesome, reliable agents all over the country, and I'd love to connect you to somebody who can help you search for that perfect home. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.